Morning people. Hear me out on this one because I'm going to wing it a little bit and freeform it a little bit. And you may or may not agree with what I'm about to say, but I'm convinced that TikTok and more widely social media generally is a measure and a barometer of where society is heading and is a predictor of where society is heading. Let me explain to you exactly what I mean, okay? So I had a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn, if you don't know, is a social media platform. It's like a professional version of Facebook, basically. It's where you make business contacts, can do business, contact companies, form alliances and form contacts and connections with other people in the same industry as you, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I did that within the business that I was in for about 15 years and built up a contact list of about 15,000 people. And then during COVID, I got it banned, got it taken away from me. They just completely cancelled it. And the reason they did that was that somebody else put on a post about COVID vaccinations, and it was to do with vaccinating young children in America, 6-month-old children. And I basically came out and said I thought that was totally out of order, totally wrong. There was no need to do it. They were never in any danger, blah, 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 blah. And got the account completely shut down. No matter how hard I tried to appeal, no matter how hard I tried to present evidence to them, no, that was completely against the narrative of that time, and the account was shut down. And then literally within about 18 months, that was mainstream chatter. Everyone was saying the same thing. Hundreds, if not thousands of people were saying exactly the same thing. And now that's pretty much the consensus opinion. And so it was predicting, or it showed you where society was at that time. And then when it changed, it shows you where society was heading. Another prime example of that, I think, has happened literally this week, in the last 2 days. So in my previous incarnation on TikTok, I had another account on here, which I'd built up during the course of last year. And then in November, December, it got taken away from me. And the reason it got taken away from me was mentioning and talking about the activities of one particular man, Mr. Robinson, Tommy Robinson. And just literally for mentioning that name, for saying a few things about one of his demos, the account was shut down completely. And at that stage, I had about 28,000 followers on that account. What I've noticed this week is, as you're aware, he was released a couple of days ago, or yesterday was it? And I've seen, and until this point, the last 2 or 3 months, 4 months, every single time I do anything about him, I'm extremely careful not to mention his full name, not to put up any clips of him, not to really go into great depth, to be very careful how I word things, because I didn't want to get banned again. And I have had other posts taken down over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 months. Anytime I mention him, they get taken down a lot of the time. So I've had to be very careful. I set up a backup account purely for that reason. But what I've noticed is, in the last 24 hours, many other people don't seem to have to be that careful. I've seen loads of posts on here now, putting up clips of his interview outside prison, openly naming him, openly talking about him, openly discussing him. And those videos don't seem to be getting taken down. So I'd like to think this one won't, because I'm only discussing what goes on around that. I'm not actually saying anything about him at all, really. So my suspicion is that the reason that that is happening is that society, and therefore TikTok and social media, are recognising the fact that he is becoming more mainstream, and he is becoming more acceptable to the mainstream, and therefore the algorithms and the people behind all these social media platforms find it much more difficult to shut everything down and shut everyone down. Do you agree with that? Do you think that that is an indicator, the fact that he is being discussed much more openly, the fact that he seems to be much more prevalent, and that he seems to be being allowed to be discussed without everyone getting shut down, is an indicator that society is changing, and that the views on him are changing, and that he therefore is becoming a more acceptable public figure? And if that's happening now, where will we be in 3 months and 6 months? And should the authorities be very concerned about that? I think they probably should. That's my take on what's happening. Let me know your thoughts and let me know whether you agree. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that in the last 24 hours, whereas previously you wouldn't have seen very many of those types of videos, now they're everywhere and they're not getting taken down? It gives me great hope, because I've been slating TikTok for months now, because every time I did any sort of a post that was controversial, it got taken down. Whereas now I seem to be able to just get away with a little bit more, 10% more, 15% more. So is freedom of speech starting to win the battle? Are we allowed to discuss the things that we previously weren't allowed to discuss? Is TikTok gradually, slowly heading more towards, probably not where X is, because that's complete freedom of speech, but certainly Facebook and Meta and Instagram have raised the barriers a little bit over the last year. You can talk about a lot more things on those platforms than you ever could before. Same as on LinkedIn, on Facebook. When COVID came out and when the vaccines were coming out, I got so many bans on there. I think within about a 14-month period, I got 8 one-month bans, separate one-month bans, just for discussing things and putting information out there. Whereas now, I can absolutely freely share that same information and it's completely acceptable. It's changed massively. And I just get the sense, slowly, hopefully, that maybe TikTok is going in the same direction. Let me know your thoughts, particularly if you're someone like me, if you make content. I'm going to copy in a load of people that I regularly have contact with. So if you are one of those people, just let me know your thoughts. Have you noticed the same thing? Have you noticed just in the last few weeks, couple of months, even this week, but you can just get away with a little bit more than you used to be able to freely before? And is that a good thing? Let me know your thoughts.